New project. This one's an 8-foot long television console. So very low, very modern. We're going to use all walnut boards, no plywood in this particular build. Here you can see we're doing the panel glue ups. There were lots of panel glue ups. We had, I think there were 4 total 8-foot long panels, just like the one that you see we're gluing together here. I won't take you through all of them, but this one was, exemplary. It's exactly what they're all like. We picked pretty good walnut. We've got a pretty good walnut supplier here in town, but any walnut does have knots in it. So we did go through and filled in the knots with epoxy. We're using tape here on the edge for knots that hit the edge. None of the edge stuff was very critical because the panels here were both wider and longer than what we needed to make the piece with. You buy this stuff as 8-foot boards, but it's actually more like 8 and change. So 8'3", 8'4". There's a little bit of randomness to it from the mill that we get it at. Here we are trimming it down and then cross-cutting it to length. The smaller cross-cuts will be the verticals and the shelf. And the drawer fronts. Drawer fronts are also part of this. Cut the bevels. We find that with really long pieces, the Festool does a better job. It's just easier to control, I think. We don't have the long saw stop. I want to be able to still use the garage, so I don't really have the space on the table saw to control a full 8-foot wide panel. So use the track saw, and it does just as good a job. This is the glue up. You can see there's 4 verticals and a shelf. The verticals on the end are bevel cut, and the verticals in the center are, commensurately shorter. I think we do find that the glue up phase of any project is the most stressful. We've got a limited amount of time to work with, and everything's got to go together just in a particular way. And you got to get the clamps on exactly the right way at exactly the right time, and then you got to check all the edges and corners, and it's everything flush and straight, and it's it's just stressful. This segment is sped up, but honestly, it feels like that's how fast we were moving in real life. This is a big glue up. We used every single clamp we had. I think we even bought a couple of extra clamps in order to do this glue up, particularly the really, really long ones. We didn't have any pipe sections long enough to do it, so we ran over to the Lowe's and bought some. And then I think we used them and took them back, but shh, don't tell anybody. And then the big part of any project is always the sanding. You can see sanding. There's lots of sanding, lots and lots of sanding. Our sanding process on this one was 120 grit, 220 grit, 320 grit. This is probably a 320 grit right here. and then after that we wet sanded and polished, and we'll cover some of that at the end of the video. The interesting part of this one was the legs. So this is my leg template. I folded that up based on the last project that I did, so that it more or less matches the profile of the legs we did on a previous project. And we did it all off of full 8x4 blocks of walnut, which, as you can see, when you pile that on top of a 3/4 inch sled, my table saw couldn't get through. So we had to make the first pass on the table saw, and then take it over to the bandsaw and finish the cut. This was the sled. So I measured these out wrong. The way I marked out the pieces, I used different edges, so I had to. It was just not the right way to do it. Subsequent project I did, I realized that this was a mistake, and made it so that whenever I put that piece down, that I always put the edge that I'm going to cut on the same, marked out on the board the same way. This was too wide, so here we cut it in the center so that it's the same size on both. Then we run it through the belt sander. Belt sander is great, and it makes stuff super flat, and just absolutely guarantees that all of the pieces are exactly the same thickness. You can see one of these, that one there. It's still got some pencil mark on it, but I send it through again. When it comes out the other side, the pencil mark is gone, so you know it's completely flat. At that point, you're basically done with the belt sander, or the drum sander. We cut out the notches. I miss cutting the cross cut on these. I guess I didn't have the camera on at the time. Here we're gluing them to the stringers. I don't know. Every time I'm gluing up stuff, I always feel like I'm fiddling with it, and there's just a better way to prepare for gluing it up or something, but I just can't seem to find anything. You just do it and make a mess, and then clean up your mess, and then hope you got it in the right spot. Which we did. This one all came out really good. Flush cut saw to remove the waste. I don't know what channel I saw this on, but this is an absolutely fantastic way to make sure that your piece sits flat on the ground. You just lay the track saw track right across the bottom of the feet, make sure it's parallel with the upper part that the case will sit on, and lop off the bit that pokes out. It was great. Here we're cutting the cross pieces to make the base. We beveled it in. I wanted the cross pieces on each end to match the bevel of the feet. Just run that through the table saw real quick, and then we drill in some dominoes here and glue it up. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Domino really simplifies the whole woodworking process. We started using yellow tape to do our marks for the dominoes because it was just really difficult to see. We've since upgraded the lights in the garage, with the new LED ones, so hopefully that'll make it even easier to see some of these marks. We did 3 stringers across this in the center part. Not 3, 2. Here we're running the drawer fronts through the drum sander. Again, makes everything exactly the same thickness and totally flat. Here we're planing down the drawer boxes, so it's just white wood from Lowe's that we're using for drawer boxes. Here we're cutting in the rabbets for the drawer bottom. Adjusting that table saw to make the drawer bottom again. And then this is the glue up for the drawer bottom. Nothing to it. Super straightforward. Probably seen drawer bottoms done, drawer assemblies done on other channels 100 times. We put a little round over on the edge of the drawer fronts. It's a 1/4 inch round over, but I didn't use the whole bit, so it's really just a little portion of it that's poking up. We used these Blum bottom mount drawer slides. Holy cow, are they complicated! Ended up making the drawer boxes twice because I read the instructions, did what I thought the instructions said, and then they didn't fit. So I still haven't figured out where the breakdown was with the drawer instructions, but I figured out a different way to calculate the size. Basically, you just put the slides into the carcass and then measure what the interior dimension of the drawer bottom is. All right, so this is how we polish this stuff. This is my 6-inch Griot's Garage Orbital Polisher. This is a car tool. That's car polish. It's a car tool, car polish. No woodworking stuff involved in this at all. So we've got, I think it's 5 or 6 coats of polyurethane on this. Basically, just built it up, and then we sanded it to, I think, 320 grit. And then we wet sanded it to 1,000 grit, and then once it was wet sanded to 1,000 grit, that's when I go after it with 2 different polishes and the polishing pad that goes with it. And you can see it makes a huge difference. I think a lot of people won't like this. They'll say it looks plasticized, but I really like that look, so that's what we were going for. Made a little template so I could do the cutout for the audio equipment on the back. That worked out really well. So this is it. This is the final polish that's on it. Lots of chatoyance, lots of little bit of grain. The grain is pretty flat on it. And there's the finished piece.